Welcome to another episode of Healthcare Connections podcast, powered by Healthcare Compliance Pros. I am your host, Jeremy Winn. Our purpose for this podcast is to introduce you to key topics and experts in the healthcare industry to ensure you have what you need to successfully manage your practice. Please subscribe and follow us on our social media channels to make sure you don't miss any new episodes. If you have recommendations for guests or topics for this podcast, email me at jwin@hcp.md. With that, enjoy this episode of the Healthcare Connections podcast. Hello and welcome to this episode of the Healthcare Connections podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Winn, the Director of Sales of Healthcare Compliance Pros. And today I'm really excited to bring on somebody that's new in my space, new in my world, but we met recently at a conference and have had some great conversations. But we have Julie Simpson with us today. Hello, Julie.
Hi, Jeremy. So nice of you to invite me here today, and I'm happy to be a part of this. It's exciting.
Absolutely. Yeah. So Julie is the owner of J. Simpson Consulting. She's also a partner and M&A advisor with Island Coast Advisors.
Mm-hmm.
So Julie, if you don't mind, take a minute and introduce yourself to our guests. Give us some of your background, how you got into, healthcare consulting and advising. I think it'd be a fun to learn more about you.
Very good. Thank you so much, Jeremy. I have been a leader for over 35 years, primarily in non-healthcare business with strategic planning, financial operations, teaching, training, process development, a lot of work with founders and helping them to be successful. And not too long after 2008 and the crash, I was working for a private family wealth office and doing everything that came across their desk, including a lot of investment research and private equity investment research. That was my first introduction there. And ended up having to look for a different opportunity and landed in oral surgery, which I discovered I absolutely love. And it was kind of an accidental introduction that got me there. So I spent 14 years as the CFO and executive director of a large, thriving, growing oral and maxillofacial surgery practice in Southwest Florida. And after 14 years there, due to some life circumstances, decided it was time to make a change. And a good friend of mine who's an attorney has been doing M&A work for a very long time in a different type of healthcare space, and invited me to join him to start a new practice together. So we started Island Coast Advisors as partners, focusing mostly on dentistry, but we also work with medical doctors as well. And I accidentally started my consulting firm because I had so many dental offices and doctor offices, mostly specialty, referred to me to help them with their financial operations, with their key performance indicators, with solving problems for process development, that I actually started that accidentally shortly after I started Island Coast Advisors.
The accidental businesses usually seem to be the ones that have the most success in my experience. So that's
They
so
do.
funny. Yeah.
They do. So I continue to juggle both, working with my partner in mergers and acquisitions. We work with both buyers and sellers. Right now, they're all in the dental space, but like I said, we can work in medical offices as well. And I continue to have ongoing relationships in medical specialty and dental specialty offices for ongoing operations or special projects.
Great.
So that's how I got to this space.
I love it. Thank you for that introduction.
Sure.
So let's focus today initially on kind of your M&A advisory stuff that you do. I'm curious to hear from you. So far, we're through the first quarter of 2025 as of this recording, and many people expected a really busy year in healthcare M&A. So I'm curious, what have you seen so far through this first quarter in the market? Has the busy year proven out yet, or are we still kind of waiting for that to start?
It's a little bit of both. So M&A last year, of course, across most industries, including healthcare, and I'll speak mostly about healthcare in this podcast, was down about 10 to 15%, depending upon the sector, last year compared to 2023. And of course, a lot of those factors had to do with political uncertainty
Hmm.
in 2024 and an election, increasing interest rates and tightening up of belts. The focus there, instead of acquiring new practices, was really mostly to focus on organic growth and even consolidation in the DSO and MSO markets, where larger DSOs were scooping up some of the smaller DSOs that found themselves over leveraged during that time. So with the election over, with some business friendly policies going into place, with a reduction in the current interest rates, and with the amount of time that some of these PE backed organizations have been on hold,
Yeah.
there's a lot more interest now in 2025 and starting to look at what's our next exit, what's our next recap for these PE backed healthcare groups. And so, what we've seen in 2025 in the first quarter so far is about a 60% increase over healthcare transactions over fourth quarter of 2024. So,
Wow.
it's starting out strong out of the gate. And I think overall there's been an increase, but healthcare has certainly been one of the higher increases in transactions in this first quarter. From my readings and from my experience and from just talking to people, who are looking at this and figuring out what to do, it looks as though there's going to be significantly more activity, especially as the year progresses, as these DSOs kind of bring their PE backed groups back out to the market.
Yeah.
And in doing that, they also want to continue to grow. And now they're going to add more office acquisition, practice acquisition transactions as they grow and work toward that next step of recap. So that's pretty much what's happening there. Some dental specific information too, which
Yeah.
is going to do some of this, is that in the next 6 years, there's the expectation that over 34% of dentists will be retiring. That's a very, very large
That's a big part of the market. Yeah, that's significant.
market. Right. So there's all this opportunity coming available to acquire practices, both in the private sector as well as in the DSO markets. And the other interesting thing that we expect to see happen this year is some creativity with some of the solutions, some joint ventures, maybe between like doctor-led practices and PE, or some other types of creative solutions for structuring these organizations for success.
Yeah.
Because as we know, when we looked at a lot of the start of these DSOs, there was a lot of really quick growth without the platforms underneath them to really support what that looks like and support the doctors who came on board. So we're
Right.
seeing a lot of shifts in managing that piece of that to grow smartly in that. And the other thing too, I think I had already mentioned, is we're seeing additional consolidation in the DSOs as
Yep.
well.
Yeah. Okay. So with those factors in place, plus there's just lots of dry powder out there, right? Hold
Yep.
periods have been longer. People are getting
Yep.
antsy. So I would
Exactly. The
anticipate
market's
in,
wonky, so money
yeah,
wants to go elsewhere.
yes. Yeah. So it would seem like these trends that we're seeing in Q1, do you anticipate those continuing for the remainder of the year?
Yep. At this point, yes, that's what I'm seeing. That's what I've been reading. That's what the conversation has been about, is
Yeah.
that we're seeing these through the end of the year. In fact, I have some communication with a couple different DSOs who have basically said that they are, preparing for the next step, preparing for an exit and growth strategy,
Yep.
or I
Okay.
should say growth and exit strategy.
Okay. So with that, anticipation,
Hmm.
obviously for an healthcare organization that, whether or not they're looking for a transaction this year or even in the next 3 years,
Hmm.
I think it's good to always be ready and to prepare
Right.
yourself for success. So I would love, as an advisor for these groups, what are some of your top strategies? Maybe it's two or three strategies that you would encourage an organization to focus on today, no matter the timeline of the transaction, that those owners of that organization may have.
Sure. Sure. One of the questions I get often from owners is, when do I start thinking about this? I
Yeah.
said, if you're asking me the question, then you start thinking about it now. You start
Then you're
doing
thinking about it. Yeah.
think about it, right? So that's the start of it. And there's some really impactful things that owners can do to help themselves today as well as tomorrow within their practice. So know your numbers is a big thing.
Yeah.
Like, do you know what your true net income is? Do you know what your true cash flow is? Do you have an understanding of the ups and downs and patterns within your practice? Are there areas that you can identify where there's some outliers or some expenses that can be modified, or some additional revenue sources that you weren't considering? Or maybe it's your RCM, your revenue
Right.
cycle management system, that there's a breakdown in somewhere in that process, that you're not collecting for all the work that you're actually doing. You capturing all that revenue that you have. Are you managing those expenses? Are you looking at your contracts when they come up? Are you
Right.
talking to insurance companies? So you don't know that until you've got some data to work with. I'm very much of a data driven process person for success, and it does work. So also your KPIs, your key performance indicators on the operational side of things.
Hmm.
How many phone calls are coming in? How many patients are converting to treatment? What is your collections to production ratio? What is your accounts receivable ratio? What's your aging look like? If these numbers aren't looked at consistently, then you can't identify what's not working so that you can adjust it, you can fix it, you can figure out how to create better efficiencies in those numbers. Because the reality is, for any doctor, you know, 100% of doctors and owners are going to retire and sell their practice, one way
Yes.
or the other. One
Exactly.
way or
Right.
the other. So it's whether it's at your terms and timing or nature's terms and timing.
Yep.
So getting ready for that, no matter how many years before it happens, is significant, because a dollar that you can increase your revenue, your net revenue today, can be worth 3 to 8 times tomorrow.
Yeah.
That's a huge increase,
It
depending
is.
upon who the buyer is and what the circumstances are on the market and things like that. So it has a big impact. So besides knowing your numbers, um, process.
Yeah.
It's surprising how many offices just don't have a process in place. So it's not repeatable, it's not trainable, it's not scalable when you don't have process. And process creates additional operational and functional efficiencies that has a direct connection to your net income. If
Yeah.
you're efficient, you can take care of more patients at a high level. You can, retain your staff, which is super expensive when you've got staff turnover. Everyone knows what to expect. And your processes, if you have good processes that everyone's following, and you have to always follow up to make sure that what you put in place is still happening.
Yep.
It's a big key to that. Then you can identify when there's something to improve. You can
Yep.
figure out those outliers or those problems way sooner, as opposed to trying to backtrack for years to figure out what went wrong when. And then just one more part of that too is compliance and cybersecurity programs. Dentistry is a huge target
Yep.
for cyber issues, and it's a bajillion dollar industry right now, for those that are attacking these malware attacks and these phishing attacks. And compliance is a huge thing too, because no matter who the buyer is, if you don't have a strong compliance program in place, and dentistry are slow adapters.
Right.
I taught a HIPAA and OSHA, or a HIPAA class, to a group at our local dental society, and this was back in 2014, just shortly after the rules were updated.
Yeah.
And the look of horror and shock on everyone's faces, that like, well, we're dentists, we don't have to follow up. And so slow adapters on that side.
Yep.
Some do it very well. I'm not saying it's everybody. Some offices do it very well. But with those compliance programs in place, with those cybersecurity programs in place, that's what buyers are expecting, whether it's a private buyer or whether
Hmm.
it's a DSO type of large group buyer. They want to know that you have a well-run practice. They don't want to buy a practice that has problems. They want to
Right.
buy successful practices with good process, good cash flow, and compliance issues, so that reduces
Right.
the liability for the practice as well as the doctors.
That's exactly right. And obviously that's something we deal with directly, and we talk to our clients about is, hey, your compliance program, it can add value. We certainly don't guarantee that, but what it will do is, if you're buttoned up on compliance, it'll allow a deal to happen. Compliance
Correct.
can kill a deal, right?
Correct.
And so
Absolutely.
that we talk about that a lot, and we certainly see that, and so
Hmm.
that's part of what we try to help our clients with. And to your point, 100% of physicians at some point need to have a transaction, whether
Correct.
it's just retirement because they're done, or they sell to somebody. there
Correct.
is going to be a transaction.
There will be a transaction,
And
and some nowadays want to partner for growth, right?
yes,
You want to do a joint venture, a partner because you
yes,
want to grow your practice. Maybe you're
that's
in your
exactly right.
early part of your practice, right? Life. Maybe you're in your late 30s or early 40s, and you've got a big timeline, to grow that. So there's so many different opportunities out there now than there were before.
Love that. And I had to chuckle to myself when you were talking about RCM and accounts payable. I looked over. I've got my latest bill from my dentist sitting right next to me that I need to pay. So, Dr. Porter, if you're listening, your money is on its way here
Checks
shortly.
in the
But
mail.
yeah, it's in the mail. Anyway, I had to chuckle. All right. So, last question, real
Yeah.
quick. There's maybe some misconceptions out there, but what does
Mhm.
it look like to work with a consultant or advisor when it comes to everyday operations and support
Mhm.
there? Or maybe it's just general guidance on a very specific thing that you need.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I come across and I joke about with my potential clients and existing clients is consultants have a bad rap and for long-term reasons, right? You bring a consultant in, they give you a solution, and then you still haven't seen any improvements, right?
Right.
The biggest thing about consulting is working with number one, the right one who's going to actually help you and partner with your office to achieve your goals for your own unique office.
Yep.
It's not one size fits all solution. And so, my recommendations for how to work effectively with a consultant, once you've found the right one, is to look at a couple of really, really important things. You want to be transparent when you're working with that consultant. What
Yes.
are your true goals? What are your true concerns? The consultant can't help you if you're not brutally honest. And sometimes it can be embarrassing. No one wants to admit that they made a bad purchase or that they
Right.
weren't paying attention to their cash flow and all of a sudden they find themselves in a really skinny financial situation. No one wants to have someone judge what they're doing, but
It's true.
so there's that emotional piece of it. But a consultant can't help unless they know exactly what they're dealing with. Just like when you go to the doctor can't help you unless they know exactly what's going on with your health. Um, be clear about your expectations. Here are my expectations of timing and the project, and here's what I think, as a doctor owner or doctor leader, and have that discussion with the consultant. The consultant will tell you whether or not they can meet those expectations and your time frame, or help you to understand if the time frame needs to be massaged a bit.
Yeah.
The expectations need to be adapted slightly depending upon what it is. I've had clients or potential clients who I knew I couldn't meet their expectations. And so I said, I'm sorry, I would love
Yeah.
to work with you, but I just don't think I'm going to be the right fit to bring you to success.
Yep.
Because I think a lot of the consultants that are out there, especially the group that I'm in, want to work with their clients effectively for their success and happiness. That's why we do this. We want to help people, but we help people with their business as opposed to their health. We're doing it in the healthcare environment.
Yep.
But also be curious. Ask the consultant questions. We don't know what your questions are if they're just stuck in your head. We want to answer those questions that come up because that can help to drive some additional solutions or drive some additional projects within that relationship. And be collaborative. This is a team effort.
Yeah.
A consultant is not the be all and end all. They might know what they know best, but they don't know your practice. They don't know your business. They don't know your employees. They don't know your referral sources. The consultants have to be curious as well. If they don't have an understanding of your unique practice, then they're not going to help you to get to success.
Correct.
So part of it is to help be part of that process, be a partner in that process for success, and be creative. Every practice is unique. Um, Sometimes it requires a unique or creative solution. It's not always going to be just a rubber stamp, same solution fits all, say one size fits all. It just doesn't.
Yeah.
So look at being creative and open your mind to some of those creative solutions, and until you can drill down to one that feels comfortable, and then evaluate it later. Sometimes it'll work, sometimes it won't, sometimes parts of it will work, and then you just make a shift, and then continue until you find that solution that's most effective for your place.
Love that. I think that's really, really wise. I appreciate kind of your thorough answer there because I think it addresses a lot of the typical concerns that you may see out there. So,
Mhm.
as we wrap up, Julie, for those that are interested in saying, "Man, Julie sounds like somebody I would really like to work with," what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Well, since I have 2 organizations, there's 2 ways to get a hold of me, depending upon what your needs are.
Yeah,
But either way is fine because I can direct you to the other organization if necessary. So if you're interested in looking at discussing what it looks like to prepare for an exit strategy, or you're looking at that you're ready to start talking about an exit strategy, or you're ready to bring on an associate to partner
yeah,
situation, we help with those situations too. It would be Julie at island coast.com is my email. And my cell phone number is the same for both organizations, 239-565-7729. And then my email for J Simpson Consulting is jsimpson4, the number 4, consulting at gmail.com.
perfect. Okay, Julie, this has been really good. Thank you so much for your insights today. And yeah, hopefully we should probably have you on as we get towards the later part of this year and get a further update on the market.
I would look forward to that very much. It's been a great experience. Thank you,
Great.
Jeremy.
Thanks, Julie. Take care.
Thanks. You too. Bye bye.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Healthcare Connections podcast. For more information on the topic we covered today, you can reach out to me or to our guest. For any additional information on healthcare compliance pros, feel free to email me at jwin@hcp.md. Don't forget to tune in next week. Thank you.